episode 1 of Diversity by the Dozen, which is discussing on how to build a truly diverse team. I'm joined here by Rocco from Beacon. In case you missed my LinkedIn posts, they managed to build an engineering team with a 50-50 split, which I think is amazing. I don't know any other kind of team really that are like this. Everyone wants to achieve it, and that is basically what I want to know, is how you manage to do that. So welcome.
Thank you.
So when did this kind of transformation begin for you?
So the Beacon is a relatively young company. It's been around only for a year and a half. So for us, it wasn't about a transformation. It was building the foundations right since the beginning. So the whole recruitment team within the company decided since early days that was the path that we wanted to go, and so it has shaped the whole culture of the company.
Yeah, sure. So you've been there for how long now?
I joined Beacon 4 months ago.
Okay. So, and then how many people have you hired since you've joined, and how large is the company, just to give a bit of context?
Yeah, sure. So the company overall is around 80 employees. The engineering department is 25. My team is 10. And since I joined, I've been doing 150 or so interviews. And we hire in my team, 150 in 4 months is quite a lot. But it's part of my role. And I hire around 8 across multiple teams.
Okay, sure. So as you mentioned, obviously this is kind of something that you've been doing since the beginning, and so what's kind of prompted it? Why do you think like it's so important to have like such a diverse team?
So it is important for multiple reasons. Like my experience so far has taught me in my career that you can achieve high performing teams regardless of the composition of the team. But you won't be able to create an amazing product and one that resonates with your customers unless you have a diverse team. So the diversity comes to play when you're building a product, because you need to have all those different points of view and experiences put together into building the
Yeah, sure.
product.
Do you often find that the girls and the men in the team often have conflicting opinions when you are doing things, or?
I do, but not like any difference between two males or two females. So yeah, like when you have a really talented group of people, they gonna clash on opinions, on ideas, regardless of their gender. So they, so I've seen different characteristics and different traits between the two groups, but on the day-to-day kind of job, it's not like that.
Okay. So you said you mentioned characteristics. Like, what would you say are like the main differences when kind of coming to managing, like, male versus female?
So the main difference I noticed, and that's also the big one of the Beacon strategies since the beginning, is that we know by experience and by the data that males tend to negotiate harder at the beginning when they want to join a company for their compensation package. So one of the main reasons why in the industry there's also inequality on pay for the same role across gender is for that primitive difference. So what we decided to do is we have different levels for the engineer organization, and within each level we have a given compensation package that is quite different from big tech companies such as Google or Amazon or any of the ones I worked in the past, where you typically have a range. And you say, for example, for level junior engineer, you are between X and Y. And as the engineer grows and progress, you have different kind of increases in the salary. But what we decided to do at Beacon is just have a specific compensation package for each level. That way, we don't have this disparity on pay gap between genders. And it's something we explained to the candidates at the beginning. They're quite, especially on the female side, they are quite also keen to work for a company that thinks that way, because it's kind of leveling the playing field. So everybody has the same opportunities and the same recognition for the job that they're doing.
Yeah, so everyone kind of goes in at a level kind of set. And how many women do you have who are on like the top of banding in comparison to men? Or
So my team in particular is 50 is 5 female and 5 male. Among them, we have one senior engineer female and two senior engineers male.
okay,
So it's not 100%, it's not
of course.
50-50 parity on, on seniority, but yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good start.
Okay. Sure. And so when kind of, you said you've done 150 interviews, and what issues did you face kind of along the journey of trying to get this 50-50 split?
So the main issue is the talent pool. Like you obviously like if you were to get all the population in London, and obviously you're gonna have equally number of female and male, but within the population of London, then you have the engineer talent pool, and those are obviously disproportionately male compared to women.
Yeah.
So the way for us to fix that problem, especially at the beginning during the interview, is creating a pipeline of candidates that is representative of what we want to achieve. So we're talking here about male and female, but we also have different, because it's what we can say explicitly on the UK about diversity, but we trying to get a pipeline that is as diverse as we can in race and religion and all that kind of stuff. But for men and women in particular, we try to come up with equally number of female and male through the pipeline, so we can interview equally.
Okay. And obviously, I presume you were working with like your internal recruiters. Do you know how they went around kind of doing that? Because there's not obviously many females to get into that pipeline. Like, how did they source?
That's a good question. And the two ways that we did that, and I was involved in both of them since the beginning, is you obviously have so much talent pool available, and you have to proactively reach out to them. So doing a session with the engineer managers and the head of product to create or to go to LinkedIn with the recruiters side by side on a session that we can go and target specific candidates, so we can filter all the candidates that we want based on certain criteria. So we went in and listed all the females available in this region, and went on and started reaching out to them one by one, trying to get them into the talent pool. Then the other thing that you can do, and that we did, is obviously London is just one representation. And in the face of the current situation that we are able to work remotely, we also decided to reach out to candidates outside the UK. So, for instance, one of my engineers is joining next month from South Korea. So we went that far to get a candidate, and obviously making the transition to the UK as smooth as possible for her.
Sure, because I imagine, kind of widening that talent pool, it obviously, well, inevitably will give you kind of a lot more option in terms of where you can get the top tier talent from, but also kind of increasing that diversity. Is that something that you would recommend to people when this is kind of one of their aim, is maybe to be a bit more flexible on remote working?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a trend that was going on before COVID anyway. COVID just accelerated all of that. And we're shifting from being in the office 9 to 5 and trading our time for money into a society where we actually focus more on the output. So it doesn't matter. And I personally don't care how my engineers do their job and when they do it, as long as we move forward and complete what we have to do. And kind of in that regards, it doesn't matter if I have an engineer in Shanghai or in Boston. And my previous team before joining Beacon, it was distributed between Boston, London, and Shanghai. So it is quite common nowadays to have a technology team distributed. So I would definitely encourage companies to open up that mentality, because it's gonna increase your talent pool, therefore the ability for you to hire.
Sure. So if a company obviously was wanting to embark on this kind of transformation, the same as you guys have, aside from, opening and being a bit more kind of flexible in where and when people work, like, What other things, or what can you recommend to other businesses basically who are looking to do the same?
I think culture plays a big role in attracting that kind of talent
Yeah.
because you obviously you can work in an industry that is attractive or that you are solving a challenging problem, and you can try to teach that to a candidate, and that's one step of the way. But then making sure that when you talk to candidates, you also explain why working at Beacon it is so different than any other opportunity that you may have. It goes a long way, and I think that boils down to few reasons. Like if you talk to any candidate and you ask them why did you leave any job in the past, it pretty much boils down to three reasons. The first one is that they the manager wasn't good enough, or they had an issue with the manager, or something related with the manager, with the direct
Yeah.
manager. The second reason is that the impact that they feel they have in the organization, it is little. And that tends to be the case in big tech companies such as Google and Amazon, because you don't feel the impact in the day-to-day work that you're doing because the company is so massive.
So big.
And the third reason is financial.
Okay.
So if you can definitely fix the financial by offering the same competitive packages that the industry is offering. You can fix the impact by virtue of being a relatively small company. Every engineer that we hire is going to have a massive impact on whether we succeed or fail. And the only thing that you can that is kind of up to you that is not easy to fix is the managerial side of things. Like you don't want your engineers to leave the company because you didn't do a good job as a manager, you or your colleagues. So the organization has to put a lot of effort into growing up managers to not just be people manager as in making sure that they're doing the right thing and that kind of stuff. Is more about creating a culture of high performing teams and
yeah. And I know because when obviously I speak to a lot of women in the sector, and one thing that they look for, I find, is have they got kind of other women in the team that they can look up to, or do they have like one-to-ones and things like that, and seeing people who have been able to progress within the company is obviously a big deciding factor to them, and that will kind of shape whether it's something they would consider. Do you have like figureheads like that within the business, or have you found that that's kind of been
not we definitely do know as much as we would like at this stage, but it is important. So that's definitely an important factor because the founding team, when the company was bootstrapped, the founding team came from Uber as they went through the journey of taking Uber into the IPO. So we know that the leadership team, the executive team, is capable of doing what they're doing, and they are and they are a mix of male and female in that regards. On the technical team, the CTO also came from a background from Amazon, and the leadership in the engineering team is coming from companies such as Spotify, Amazon, and Google. My background is Google. And when you're trying to get talent, obviously that kind of leadership team also is, as you mentioned, like is encouraging you to join, because then you can see a progression and on the organization. We would love to have more senior leadership female, but that hasn't been an issue in getting females into the company.
Of course. And I suppose it's always quite difficult, isn't it? Because as you mentioned, the volume of people who are at that stage is quite hard. And with the kind of like the situation of COVID at the moment, a lot of people are not wanting to move and things like that. But I suppose having, one senior in your team and a few more juniors, one of them could grow and progress, and it would be kind of a good.
But I can give you an example in that space. So outside engineering, I got contacted by a female on LinkedIn on the product side. She reached out saying, "Hey, I've been following up Beacon for quite a while. I work in the logistics and supply chain industry. I've been working at these companies in the past. I would love to have a chat with you to understand more about the company." So even though, and then after having a chat with her and explaining what we do and where we're going, we realized that there's going to be a potential good match. She's really, really strong, but she doesn't necessarily wants to join right now for perhaps COVID reasons or any other
Mm.
career reasons that she may have. So she's like, that sounds amazing. Can we touch base again in 6 months to see what roles are open? So
Yeah, of course.
it is not just trying to get the problem solved for today. It's not going
Yeah.
on LinkedIn or any other recruitment platform and try to get candidates for today. It's also trying to build that long-term pipeline,
Yeah,
and you get that by bringing excitement into
of course.
the.
Okay, so when you were kind of going on, so it's been like what, 5, 6 months of trying to build this, like what would you have changed or improved upon in the way you went about it if you were to do it, or I know you're still doing it now, but next time you're building a team?
So I think we did a lot of good things from the beginning. One thing I will
Mm.
definitely do going forward is, as I was mentioning before, like when building the foundation of the team, the leadership team, which has to come from a strong technology background, we have to make sure that there is a good representation also for what we're trying to build as a company. Today, we're more on the leadership team, we're more on the male than on the female side.
Okay,
And that's something that next time
you would
we should
change.
think. Yeah.
Okay, and one thing, like obviously, I've noticed is with certain clients that I've been working with, in interviews, like females tend to interpret things a little bit differently to their male counterparts, and I think there's a lot of studies on how women feel sometimes that they're asked more questions or perhaps like a little bit more kind of in depth in interview processes. Did you have to change your interview technique when doing this, like for male and female, or did you keep it the same?
We took a different approach on the interviewing, not because of male and female, but because we wanted to make sure that we include all the talent that we
Okay.
possibly could.
Mm.
And the first thing that we did was, some companies prefer to have a classic interview process where you do, especially for engineering, you do your coding interview, then you're doing your system design and your culture fit. The
Mm.
problem is that not everybody is great at, perhaps they are good talent, but not everybody is great at doing the live coding interview where you have somebody else watching while you're coding and solving a
Yeah, of
problem
course.
right there and right now. So we have to be flexible. And one of the things that we decided to do is giving the candidate the choice of, throughout the process, we want to hear from you, like how do you want to tell us
Okay.
that you have great talent. So it could be that you are
Mm.
comfortable doing the live coding interview, and we're gonna do that. It could be that you prefer doing a take-home test, and we're gonna send you one.
Okay.
Or you prefer to take us through one of your existing projects that you did in the past and explain to us in technical detail
How you did it.
how you did it. So
Okay.
giving the candidate the opportunity also, we're making sure that we're not losing out on those people that are extremely
Mm.
good, but perhaps don't have the interviewing skills needed. And we don't want to
Yeah.
hire people that are good interviewers
Mm.
or are interviewing. We want to hire people that are good at what they do. So
Okay.
that's definitely one thing that we did. And the other one is also changing the mentality on how do we source the candidate on the first place. Like if you
Mm.
look at the industry, is very much uh, um, leading towards the classic upbringing, which you have to go to the uni and do 5 years
Mm.
of computer science degree, and that's certainly a path that many of us had, and our team definitely has those kind of people. But we also went in and partnered with the Makers Academy, which is a
Okay.
bootcamp
Yeah.
program that you might be aware of. And those people come from different backgrounds, not necessarily tech. They go through the bootcamp process, 3, 4 months, 6 months, and they graduate, and then they join a company. And
Okay.
we have one of them joining us. Is a female, by the way, and her background was from pharmaceutics.
Okay.
So she knew nothing about tech. She went to Makers, graduated, and then joined Beacon. Obviously,
Sure.
it's not, and then your interview process has to be adaptable, because you cannot expect that kind of person to have the same knowledge and
Knowledge.
experience of somebody that did 5 years of university degree. So you have to be flexible on that, recognize that those people, and look out for things that you really care about, like problem solving and culture fit.
Mm.
And the foundations of tech, you can teach that
Of
in
course.
the course of the the work.
Because I do find, like with a lot of my clients, is that's quite a big requirement for them is people who have gone to certain unis or studied a certain degree and things. And I suppose it's kind of that new wave, isn't it? Of there's a lot of these kind of code first, code girls boot camps and things like that. Like, do you find that the standard is the same, and are you attracting good talent from those sources, or is it just like a one-off?
It is definitely not a one-off, but it's also not something that you can do on a regular basis, because you cannot have your whole team based on that level, right? Because you need a balance between senior, mid, and junior. When you're bringing somebody from a boot camp, most likely it's going to be on the junior side, and you have to recognize that you need to spend some time either yourself or from your team members coaching and mentoring and growing that engineer. It's going to take quite a lot of effort, but it is an effort that we are willing to put, not because we expect that person to be highly efficient since day one. It's because we're betting on the capabilities of that person to learn and grow fast based on what we heard so far and based on their career, and also because they're bringing a whole lot of different perspective into the team. Like in this particular case, that person came from a pharmaceutical background, nothing to do with tech. It can have a completely different point of view on how we build the products. And that's something that we value alongside also the technical skills. So we're confident we can grow the technical skills of that person based on what we see, but we value enormously her contribution into what we're doing and what we're building.
Okay, perfect. And touching obviously on what you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, you said that you give people the option to do a take-home test or a live coding challenge. Like, is there any trends, do you find, like between male and female on what they prefer or where certain people have excelled at?
Well, I was hoping to see more variance after we open up and give that kind of choice. But what I found is people tend to be conservative, and if they know that this process is you do the live coding and then you do the system design and then the culture, they tend to stick with it. And really few people decided to do differently. Like the vast majority of them went through the classic live coding interview process. Which is in one way is great because it unifies the process on our side, but it's also really interesting to see how, given the choice, people tend to be more on the conservative side. I guess, I guess it's a bit of a personality trait there, but nothing major that I can speak of.
Okay, fair enough. And so obviously now you've got this great talent, you've got this great team, it's super diverse. What are you doing to make sure that they all stay? What are you doing to kind of, retain that talent and train them up and make sure that they're happy in a sense?
Yeah, good question. So the three main reasons why people leave a company, I just mentioned that to you before, and you can definitely make sure that that they are paid well and according to market rates, and that shouldn't be a reason why they are leaving. On the other side, having the impact, that's also for a company like Beacon really easy to give. And the thing that we're focusing on is on the manager side of things. Like we need to train our managers on how to build a high performing team. And it's not like it happens overnight, and especially in the technology industry where you have managers coming from a technical background. They used to be software engineers and now they become managers. It is not a natural career progression. Becoming manager is a career change. And as a career change, we Beacon have to make sure that the managers that we are either hiring outside or bringing in from internally, we have to train them into a way that they know which points to touch on the engineers to keep them motivated, to keep them engaged, to keep them happy. And I personally tend to follow Paloma Medina's biceps model into building high-performing teams. I really love that. I've been doing that for the last 3-4 years, and it's been paying off quite a lot.
Sure. So for those who are not maybe familiar with that, like what is that?
Yes, a good point. So the bicep model is just an acronym, like B stands for belonging and so on. I can touch on that, but it is a model where we identify psychologically what are the needs of people in any work environment and try to fulfill those gaps. And like in any situation, people as a human being, they want belong to a group. Like people like to work together and belong to a community and have the feel of connection. So the B stands for belonging.
Okay.
And I can go on if you want on the other ones, but yeah, that's kind of the principle of
So this sense
biceps.
of so this sense of kind of a community and belonging where they can kind of grow and flourish, I suppose. So to finish it off, then, for anyone that's watching this who want to kind of achieve the same as what you have or are striving to that, like summing it up quickly in like one sentence, like what would you say? Like what piece of advice would you give?
I will give the advice of thinking about the culture that you want to have in the company, put that in writing, create cultural values, and then just not leave it like that. Like make the whole company live and breathe those cultural values, being those cultural values reflected into how you recruit, how the interview process go. What do you look for in the candidate if they match those cultural values? And also make sure to uh, promote engineers within the company based on those values as well.
Okay.
The technical capabilities is 50% of the way. We had many engineers doing in the pipeline that were extremely good, came from extremely high reputable tech companies, but then they failed in the interview process because they didn't meet the standards that we want for culture values.
Okay.
So yeah, I think if you want to differentiate yourself in the mix, you have to come up with a cultural values that you want to represent the brand of and the image of your company.
Okay, so find out who you are and what you stand for and kind of stick to it through all process of your interviews.
Indeed.
Yeah, perfect. Well, it's been great speaking to you. Hopefully, this will inspire lots of more people to kind of go on the same embarkment that you have, and hopefully, we'll see a lot more kind of diversity within tech teams.
I'm looking forward to that. I have
Perfect.
a young daughter, and hopefully, the future is bright for females.
Fingers crossed. I'm sure it will be.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kate.
No worries. So thank you so much for that. I think it'll be really helpful. Like I speak to so many engineering teams who are all like, we want females, we don't know how to go about it. Like we want females, and I'm like, but have you got the structure in place to keep them, to retain them, and things like this? And I think it's a token that everyone wants it to tick it off their list and to tick it. Oh yeah, we're diverse, we're inclusive, but realistically, like there's a lot to go. So I think it'll be quite interesting for people to see how you've achieved.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Like, and that's the main problem. Like, if a company decides that is a tick box that they need to check, then it becomes just a numbers game.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if you understand that it actually brings value for your company, for your bottom line, to have a diverse team, then you completely change the way that you think about it and the way that you behave and the way that you recruit and all of that. So
Yeah, definitely.
at the moment, the vast majority of the companies in the past I work for, they think about it as a checkbox, and
Yeah.
it's unfortunate. And I think one thing that Beacon did pretty well is what I was saying before, is that since the beginning they really wanted to achieve that, and they went on a mission to go above and beyond to get to that level. So
Yeah, of course. And I think that's it. Like, so speaking to someone the other day, and she's like a head of analytics now for like Specsavers. So she's done like kind of, she's quite high up, but she was saying like, if you look at my CV, like I move around quite a lot. And she was just like, to be honest, like I've always been the only female in the team and being that kind of like figure of, yes, we've got like diversity, and then nothing ever happened. Like she couldn't get promoted. She just realized that it was just never kind of going to move, where she's moved to Specsavers now, and they have like a lot more like females kind of throughout the business, and she felt like it was somewhere that actually kind of recognise that rather than just like a diversity like quota field. So it's definitely interesting seeing so many people think like, yeah, I've got like one female, that's fine.
yeah, exactly. And it's a chicken and egg problem. Like getting the first one is hard, getting the second one is a little less hard, and so on. It's definitely really hard at the beginning, but once you get two or three in your team, then it's a snowball effect.
Of course. And I honestly like don't know any people who have a team that is, kind of, 50-50. Like, do you know anyone else that's like that, or?
This has been my first time in my career, to be honest. I'm achieving this
Yeah.
kind of goal. so when I joined, we were 70% male, and
Okay.
I made a conscious effort to try to get into 50% of the last 4 months.
Yeah.
So, but one thing that I didn't mention in the thing that I found also important of what you're saying is that, especially on the junior side, we have a couple of junior software engineers, female, and they told me that after I did it, that they value that so much because I spend a lot of my time one-on-one with these engineers, telling them not just how my background is and the career choices that I've made, and kind of trying to coaching them into their career, and by having sessions on the technical side. So, for example, I with one of my engineers, I spent a couple of hours a couple of weeks ago, kind of talking about microservices and Kubernetes and Docker, and kind of
Yeah.
teaching her those concepts and that stuff. And
Hmm.
for somebody, many people at my level, we think that that's a waste of time, that I shouldn't be doing
Yeah.
that. But I see that as an investment. Like, that person is
Mm.
in my team, and she's gonna build the products that I'm gonna be
Hmm.
kind of in charge of. So I want her to be as knowledgeable as possible. And then on the other side, also on the career side, I had a conversation with the same person like a month ago on, this is based on my experience, all the different career paths that you can take in the tech industry, from a data scientist to a data engineer to a
Mm.
SRE, DevOps, like all the different paths that you can go. And based on my experience, I've been a backend engineer, I've been a front-end engineer, an SRE. I work at startups, I work at Google, I work at different companies.
Yeah.
So I have a broad spectrum, and I can tell you what is what and what are the
Mm.
pros and cons on each one of them. And they value that so much, and
Yeah.
and I think that's also something that people should invest more. Not just you cannot delegate that to like somebody senior on your team, say like, hey, can you go and teach that junior engineer that kind of stuff? They want to see that from you. They want to see that from the leadership team. If you
Yeah, of
invest the
course.
time, they're gonna be happy with it.
And then that's how you're going to get talent that's going to want to stay with the business and grow. And because otherwise, like I notice a lot, some companies at the moment, like their turnover of staff is so high because they don't have that, and they feel like their engineers are just there to kind of fill seats and don't feel like they're actually having any like, that they matter or have any sort of like impact. And I think, by being able to do one-to-ones and nurture this talent, you stand a better chance of just keeping people and growing a team, that actually want to be there.
100%. And one more thing on that is that I think also managers in general have to really care about the team. Like I mean, it goes without saying, but what I've
Mm.
seen in the past, and what my engineers are telling me since I became a manager, is that they really appreciate the fact that I truly care for their
Yeah.
well-being and their career progression, and fighting for their rights and their position. Because
Hmm.
what I found in the past is that managers, as you pointed out, they just care about filling seats, filling headcounts,
Mm.
and they just care about their uh, how they look in the eyes of senior leadership
Yeah.
into advancing their careers and taking credit for what the team have done
Yeah.
on their behalf, so they can advance. And the thing is that you can do that, and then you may go and advance in your career, but your team, your engineers are going to notice that. Are going to notice that you're using them, you are taking their credit to your personal agenda, and
Mm.
you're going to lose the respect of them quite quickly. So it is really important that you obviously personally you want to grow and you want to continue your career, but you have to care about the team that you have. You have
Yeah,
to
of
care that they
course.
also progress, and not many managers that I've seen and that I'm trying to coach do that. So that's
Yeah,
what I was saying
definitely.
before. That Beacon, we try to coach the managers in that kind of behavior, and I am part of
Mm.
that team that is coaching
Yeah,
managers.
of course. Because I was speaking to, I don't know if you've heard of Glint Pay, but they're like a fintech that they're very small. And they look at basically like reintroducing gold as money, and it's like a kind of like a investment company. But their engineering manager is female, and she was saying that like what she found as a problem is basically what you were just saying, is that they weren't doing enough one-to-ones. They didn't genuinely care. And then also the fact, I don't know if this is something that you found, but they didn't do enough that was just like outside of work, in a sense. So like you mentioned, like just talking about careers and talking about how you can help them outside of like coding or whatever it may be. And so it's making them feel just a bit more valued. And regardless of male or female, like just to make a happy team. And she said that that's something that now she tries to do in her leadership because it was never done for her, and that's like the advice that she would give to people who are looking. Would you agree?
100% agree with that.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
of course. Because the thing is, like, so I speak to hiring managers all the time, and the problem is like as I mentioned earlier, everyone just wants super senior, really smart, like females, but there's not enough. Like obviously we've got a bit of an issue coming from STEM subjects and people entering the sector anyway. But the issue, like when women are entering the sector, there's no junior jobs for them to go into, or people want to do a career change like the Makers Academy or like Girls Code or whatever. And there's so many companies who will turn their nose up at potentially even hiring someone like that, which I think is crazy.
Yeah, I think that is crazy. The problem is at the root, like there is not enough people in general, not just female and male, going into STEM courses, and that's the root of the problem that we should try to solve.
Course.
But what we can do now is giving the opportunity to people that goes through these boot camps and journeys to do a career change. Like we are displacing as part of our day-to-day job, we are building technology, we're building product that is displacing many other industries. So the least that we can do is try to recoup some of that personnel and help retrain that person. Obviously, you can, as I was saying, you cannot build your entire company on Makers Academy or Girls Who Code, but you have to have a foundation of software engineers with a lot of experience. But then you have to be conscious and take the effort into accepting those people and putting the time and the effort to train them and helping them grow in their career.
Definitely.
For sure.
Because I was reading something today, I think like University of Durham have like one of their professors is female, and she's been like pushing it like crazy basically to get more girls in like computer science, because I think they were saying that the amount of people who do it at A levels has decreased since they've changed it from IT to computer science or something, and now it's not appealing to as many females, and that's why we're not getting as many people into the university. But I haven't researched too much, but that's the basis of what I saw, is because I didn't realize they changed it from just IT. But apparently it's
that's pretty interesting, and I think that might have something of truth. But I think the problem is not that crystal clear, because I think it's been ingrained in our brain since we were a kid that males are good at something and females are good in something else. And if you can go to IKEA and you can go to these child rooms, and you're gonna see that for the boy child room, it's gonna be a bed, a desk, and in the desk you're gonna have a microscope and you're gonna have a computer and so on. And if you go on the girls section, in their desk you're gonna see a kitchenette and you're gonna see a baby doll. So if we are ingraining into kids, into babies' brain that mentality, they're obviously growing up thinking that that's what they should supposed to do. So I'm very conscious of that, because as I say, I have a young daughter, and I definitely don't want any of these preconceived notions to be in her brain. Like we have to change the way that we grow our kids into the society and give everybody the same opportunity to access the same possibilities.
And I think as well, I went to like what should have been a single gender school, but I think in sixth form they mixed it, and it's like the boys' school was always science focused, and always the girls' school had none of that. And it's like those kind of things. Obviously, I know there's not many of them now, but it's still obviously having an impact on boys' subjects, girls' subjects, like girls' humanities. Like to me, I was always quite good at math, but when I went to like A levels, the thought of doing that or anything was never even like considered. And I went and did history, which is so difficult. But
I totally agree with you. Like, yeah, we can find these papers trying to explain the reason, but I truly believe that the main reason is the schooling system and the way that we parent our kids. That's what is affecting the opportunities for female in the workforce, especially on the science roles.